Welcome in Notre Dame fans, football fans from across the country. This is another episode of Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Today, I am Ben Belden. I'm going to be your host today. Take us through another live session talking Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Notre Dame football going forward. So if you're new here, like I say, I'm Ben Belden. I host a lot of the Notre Dame content on this particular page. And so here I am again to talk Notre Dame, Ohio State. I was at the game last night. Didn't get to do a post-game show, but that's the plan, for about probably 9 or 10 of the Notre Dame games. Pretty much the only time I won't be doing a post-game show is the times that I'm at the Notre Dame game, which obviously was the case last night. So we're going to talk Notre Dame, Ohio State, get into it. Again, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We've got a few people in here already watching us live on YouTube, whether that's on the Notre Dame channel or the Ohio State channel. If you like your content tonight, make sure that you give us the thumbs up. You like, comment, subscribe, share, all of that. Join in the conversation. That's kind of what we're hoping to do with this particular show. Make sure you tell our friends. Like I say, subscribe over there. Make sure if you are whether you're a Notre Dame fan, whether you're just a college football fan, you turn on those notifications so you're notified every time we're going live or are going to go live. So that makes these conversations a little bit more fun. So we're going to get to some of your comments. I see there's a few comments in the chat already. Again, like I say, we'll get to those. I'll pause at different points, get to those comments. Also, if things go well, we tried this on the last show. We didn't get a caller because I probably didn't do it right. But we'll have a call-in line that I'll drop that number for here in a little bit. And if you want to call in and talk on this particular show, we'll make that available to you. Again, kind of testing that part out. So if it doesn't work, we'll power through it and move on. But that all out of the way, all of the particulars. Let's kind of get down to it. Talk about what I saw from this weekend in Columbus. Again, if you can't tell, I went to the Notre Dame Ohio State game. I'm a little bit hoarse, playing a little bit injured here, but we're going to power through. So I'm going to try my best to not cough and clear my throat on the mic 7 million times. But again, the last thing I guess I should say is follow on Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see my Twitter handle right there. It's at RealBBelden, BELDEN. Oftentimes take those conversations from one place and continue them in the other. And so if you want to join in that conversation, follow me. I'd greatly appreciate it. Okay, so Notre Dame fell to Ohio State, final score of 21-10 in Columbus in a game where Notre Dame won the game for, about almost 3 full quarters, I believe, unless I'm mistaken. Ohio State scored right at the end of the third quarter to take a 14-10 lead. Notre Dame could muster no offense in the second half. Hats off to Ohio State's defense, by the way. I was skeptical that Ohio State's defense was going to look strides better than they were last year, just given that you change one thing, and that's a defensive coordinator. And, frankly, at least for 1 week, I was wrong about that. I was impressed with Ohio State's defense without doing, and I think, it's been talked about that they didn't do a whole lot of real special things, a couple blitzes, but mostly just kind of, got after Tyler Buckner. We were real physical, manned up, zoned up, switched up some things there. Didn't see Ohio State doing a whole lot, and I don't pretend to be the football X's and O's guru, but I can tell when, there's just good, solid defense and where there's some schematic good stuff. I really think Ohio State just played some really good, solid defense in this one and made Notre Dame's life pretty hard, made Notre Dame's life real hard for most of the game, with the exception of a couple of chunk plays that allowed Notre Dame to sustain and score a couple of times and keep this one close. So let's talk real quickly, just because this was kind of an interesting one. Again, like I say, I went to the game yesterday. I live in Ohio, so it was about a 2-hour drive for me to get to Columbus. Went down Friday night and hung out Friday night in the city of Columbus. And it's obviously not the first time I've been to Columbus, Ohio. Was the first time that I've gone to an Ohio State football game, however. But I got to give a kind of a shameless plug here. Not a shameless plug because it's not a plug for me, I guess. But if you are a Notre Dame fan around Columbus, you got to check out Dempsey's right there downtown, just a little bit on the south side of downtown. It's a nice Irish bar, a Notre Dame bar. They love Notre Dame there. Cool atmosphere. It was packed when I got there Friday night, which was really cool to see. Notre Dame fans green everywhere. They have a nice little outdoor area back there where they were playing Rudy, and a cool place to hang out. They do a watch party, I believe, every Saturday. So every time that there is a Notre Dame game, they play it there. And like I say, I've never been there for a game, but it looked like it would be a sweet place to go watch a game. Especially if you want to be surrounded by Notre Dame fans to commiserate with or celebrate with or what have you. So we did that Friday night, did a couple of other local Columbus things. Obviously got to the game Saturday. Here's what I'm going to say about Ohio Stadium just real quickly. And if there are Buckeye fans in here, don't take this personally, but man, getting into Ohio Stadium, like, wow, like was an absolute chaos. I don't, it took a very, very long time. I was trying to get into Ohio Stadium, honestly, about, 6:00. Didn't get in till like closer to 7:00. And I don't know. It was an interesting, I know that Ohio State has about 25,000 more people that go to games than Notre Dame, but man, was it absolutely chaotic to get into Ohio Stadium. Once in there, I was impressed with the atmosphere that Ohio State had. But I'll be honest with you, it was real loud in there. I don't know what it sounded like on TV. I've not actually had the chance to go back and watch this game a second time. So I don't really know how it was portrayed on TV, but it was loud. But I'll be honest, like, I didn't think that Ohio State fans were on average particularly much louder than Notre Dame fans. Like, I thought that from a crowd participation standpoint, there's the kind of stereotype that Notre Dame fans are the sit on your hands and don't really cheer type of fans, and never make any noise. I didn't think Ohio State fans, with the exception of, the student section, which is the same that you can say at Notre Dame, to be honest with you, really went all that wild at different times. Now, they crank the music stupid loud in that place in a way that they don't do at Notre Dame Stadium, and I thought that was kind of a big difference. But all in all, a pretty good experience in the stadium. I've talked on Twitter a little bit about how prior to the game, I had a couple people good-natured booing me, as I kind of went around campus at Ohio State a little bit. Nothing too bad whatsoever at that point. After the game was a little bit of a different story. Was pretty harassed on my walk back to the hotel after the game. Just some. I don't know. We'll leave it there. And so, we're a lot of the people that probably harassed me, Ohio State students. I think so. So poor decision making on some of their parts, I guess. But won't take it too personally. I knew what I was getting into. Overall, pretty good experience at Ohio Stadium. Like I say, with the exception of a few mostly students and other young adults. Had a lot of really good interactions with Ohio State fans. So have mostly good things to say. A couple bad apples kind of spoiled a bunch. I kind of talked about that on Twitter today. But regardless, was an enjoyable experience, I guess, for the most part at Ohio Stadium. Obviously, results of the ball game excluded from that. So let's talk about football then, as I'm sort of sitting here kind of checking up on the comments. We got 50-some people in here right now. Thanks for coming in. Again, if you're interested in what we're saying here, make sure you go over to Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. I'd really appreciate it. If you're so inclined, again, this is MarkRogersTV, voice of college football. If you're so inclined, go to the comments and make a donation. It allows us to do some cool stuff over here. So I appreciate that. All right, so to the football game. And like I say, we're going to keep, there's only so much you can say in this game. There's only so much you can talk about game one because, the body of work is so small. I mean, general things. Notre Dame's defense, even better than I thought, even better than advertised. I really thought, I said on the pre-show, on the pre-Ohio State show, that I thought Notre Dame was going to have to settle for giving up a few chunk plays, bend but don't break, force them into three, try to keep them in the low 30s and play that type of a game. Just pound the ball on offense, keep Ohio State's offensive field, limit the amount of plays they can run. You get the picture, and that's not really it. I thought Notre Dame for 3 quarters really controlled the defensive line, especially in the run game. When Ohio State had the ball, I guess I should say, they controlled the line of scrimmage. Wore down a little bit. We're playing from behind in the fourth quarter, and I think a lot of those things kind of really played into, Ohio State kind of ran the ball, right down their throats for most of the fourth quarter. Obviously led them to, really even end of the third quarter, getting that touchdown and then just kind of salting it away there in the fourth. So, that said, for most of the game, I thought Notre Dame did a tremendous job defensively. I thought that, I was really, really impressed with Notre Dame's defensive backs, and, getting to watch the game in the stadium was one that, you get the luxury that you don't necessarily get on TV of, being able to watch the play unfold. And it really felt like most of the time when Ohio State was running pass plays, there really wasn't a whole lot there. CJ Stroud was able to escape pressure a little bit, a couple times, get out on the edge and make some really nice, Heisman candidate type throws, to be quite frank with you, to keep drives going, to pick up some big yards, to move Ohio State's offense, especially there in the third quarter, into scoring position. If there's anything, I guess I'm a little bit disappointed in, it's that Notre Dame's defensive line didn't get home very often. I can think of I think just only one sack. I could be wrong on this one. Somebody correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I can remember one sack. I believe it would have been in the second quarter that I think ended a drive for Ohio State. I think there was pressure there at different times, but it just sort of seemed like every time there was pressure, CJ Stroud was able to elude, extend the play, and make a big play. And that's what you expect from a Heisman candidate quarterback that's been there before. And speaking of quarterbacks that's been there before, we'll talk about Notre Dame's offense here in just a second, to be honest with you. But, I think as Notre Dame's offense evolves and continues to evolve, that's what you hope for Notre Dame to gain from Tyler Buchner eventually as well. CJ Stroud at this point has, came into an established system, as a freshman a year ago. Really, there were times where honestly he struggled a little bit at the beginning of the year, moved, evolved as a quarterback, really got comfortable, and, is a bona fide, genuine Heisman candidate now, putting up just unreal numbers as the season went on. CJ Stroud's the real deal, and he made some plays that really won Ohio State that game. Obviously, then, when you mix that in and then you start to get a little bit of, push on the offensive line like Ohio State did, that really salted the game away and was the difference maker for Ohio State on the offensive side of the ball. But in general, some real key takeaways, some real general things, I think you cannot deny in this particular game, this is good on Notre Dame's part, that Notre Dame as a team was way more up and ready for this particular moment than I've seen them in the past. There was in past big games, there have been times where you looked at Notre Dame offensively, defensively, special teams, etc. And if you were just kind of looking for just, feeling the pulse of that particular game, you would think, you would say, well, Notre Dame's on their heels right now and they've got to stop the bleeding. Notre Dame wasn't on their heels, particularly a whole awful lot. at the beginning of this particular game. And I know, I don't like to play the moral victory card. I don't like to play, because there are no moral victories. Let's put it that way. However, I think you can't have watched this game against Ohio State and still think that with the way Notre Dame is recruiting and doing some other things well, that Notre Dame is going to be on the wrong end of these most of the time for too much longer. I mean, they're going to have to prove it. And I understand. I'm frustrated too. I'm frustrated with a lack of execution on the offensive side of the football. I'm frustrated that the defensive line, didn't get home on CJ Stroud as much as I had hoped they would, and what I thought they would have to do to be able to win. I'm frustrated that Ohio State is just a notch above Notre Dame, and I don't mean that to say, Ohio State is clearly in the top 3 or 4 teams all the time, and Notre Dame is not. They're in the top, 5 to 10 oftentimes. And oftentimes I think that the difference between the first, 2 or 3 and the difference between a 2 or a 3 and an 8 or a 9, I think that's a pretty big difference a lot of the time. And I acknowledge that. I'm frustrated that Notre Dame's not there yet. But, has Notre Dame certainly shown that they closed the gap. I think, as far as, one game, and again, one game, I got to keep stressing that one game. Yes, I think it's pretty obvious that there's some gap closing going on, and with recruiting and with, a new voice, and if everything that's going on that's positive with the Notre Dame football program, I think Notre Dame is still headed in the right direction, and that this game, win or lose, was not, the way it went isn't going to change how I feel about that. And I think it can both be true. You can be optimistic for what lies ahead and also frustrated by those things that didn't work out for Notre Dame that you thought would work out a little bit better. Catching up on a couple of the comments here. Let's get to a couple of these real quickly. I'm going to go back all the way to the beginning here. Penn State fan, PSU nitwit. Notre Dame is 8-4 team, losses to OSU, BYU, Clemson, and USC. Gotta agree to disagree on that one, PSU nitwit. I think Notre Dame plays that level against a team like Ohio State. BYU doesn't have much of a chance. USC will be another interesting challenge. A team that has maybe the same type of offensive firepower. We'll find out, I guess, as the season goes on. But Clemson, is in November in South Bend, when Notre Dame will have had some opportunities to kind of move through their offense a little bit and evolve offensively. Notre Dame, that's probably going to be Notre Dame's worst offensive showing all year. I'm pretty confident in saying that, because I think at the end of the day, you're going to look back and say, that Ohio State defense, the way that the speed at which they played with, they really are going to end up being pretty good. We've got Jake Anderson in here. Hey, Buckeye here. I was highly impressed with the Notre Dame defense, as was I. I was pleasantly surprised with Notre Dame's defense. I always felt pretty good about the front seven. I was a little bit worried about the secondary against Ohio State. And honestly, I don't think Notre Dame's secondary could have played a whole awful lot better than they did last night. Certainly there were times. Certainly Ohio State found some, hit on a couple big pass plays. I get that. They were going to, but I just thought Notre Dame played really well on the defensive side of the football, good enough to win. Now where Notre Dame has to continue to take strides is, finding the dynamic playmakers on offense, developing those guys. I think they've got them on the roster. The problem is most of them are freshmen and sophomores right now and didn't step up and make huge plays in this particular one, but will over the course of their careers at Notre Dame. I mean, I think Lorenzo Styles, you saw some flashes from him. True sophomore, didn't play a lot at the beginning of the year last year, was getting some play at the end, and I think Jaden Thomas is going to be really good. Tobias Merriweather is going to be really good. Those guys are young, and just Merriweather didn't get on the field at all last night. But as Notre Dame's receivers, I begin to lost their slot receiver in Avery Davis. I think he would have played a big role in this one. So Notre Dame defense good enough right now. Offense is not good enough, but I think it'll go in the right direction. Ignoring some comments about Notre Dame not showing up in big games. I don't think that's the narrative. I mean, you can continue to say that that Notre Dame doesn't show up in big games because they haven't. I'm a Notre Dame fan. I get it. They haven't won big games with regularity. I get it. But again, like I say, they showed up in this one. They didn't get blown out in the way that most Ohio State fans were saying they were going to get blown out in. And the arrow points upwards. For a long time, the arrow was, there was a plateau in the arrow. And I think it's very obvious to see that the arrow points upward for Notre Dame. D-Rock confirms only 1 sack on Stroud. Appreciate that. Like I say, I think that was that was one thing that I was very, very disappointed in was the lack of getting home to get CJ Stroud. Now, easier said than done. The kid's really good. The kid's really good. And really athletic. And like I say, he made just 3 or 4 plays just off the top of my head where he just kind of had to improvise, put the team on his back, so to speak, and make the play to win the game. And he made the game-winning plays. And then, like I say, Ohio State salted it with the run game there and got the line moving a little bit. And, there it was. Thanks for the comment, Charisse. I appreciate it. The most impressive thing about Notre Dame is definitely their defense because they did a really good job. I agree. Not going to touch on Notre Dame joining the Big Ten right now. It's a conversation for another day. This one from Brian Nichols. I couldn't agree with this more. It's only one game. The next couple of games will show. I absolutely agree. That's without a doubt, in my opinion, the best team Notre Dame's going to play all year. Clemson will be a close second. And so, if we're still having the same conversations in November that we're having now, and I haven't even talked about the offense yet, then I think then you have a different conversation. This person was commenting and saying that Ohio State is only just a notch above Notre Dame. I mean, yeah, honestly, I mean, again, like I say, I think they're in the top 2 or 3 most years, and there's a little bit of a difference. So maybe you say there's, the top 2 or 3, maybe 4 teams, and then there's a little bit of a gap, and then I think there's teams, a group of teams right after that, and I think Notre Dame falls in that group of teams right after that. Right now, I don't really know that there's an argument to say otherwise. I think what Notre Dame fans are the most upset with at this point is that they've been in that second notch for too long. Going for some more pro Notre Dame comments. Give props to Notre Dame. They played a heck of a game. Thanks again, Charisse. I'll address this one real quick, and then we'll get back to kind of our regularly scheduled programming. This, I'm assuming, young man says Notre Dame's 10 points came off fluke plays. Don't know that I agree with that. If you watch the first play of the game that set up Notre Dame's opening field goal, don't think that was a fluke play. I think that Tyler Buckner made a really good pass, a really good throw right on the money where it was either going to be incomplete or Lorenzo Styles was going to catch it, and it was a one-on-one type of a situation, and Lorenzo Styles made a big play. I don't know. Um, um, this play was one actually I was going to talk about. D-Rock, double blitz safety on Stroud in the second OSU touchdown left our freshman defensive back hanging out to dry. First play when he came in, huge blunder. Yeah, that's one that I think you're going to look at and say that if Al Golden could pick that one and take that one back, I would do that. I believe Tariq Bracy was injured on the play before that. Might have been a cramp. I honestly don't know. I did not check on the Tariq Bracy status after the game. But if we want to talk about the situation, so really what upset me about that situation was not only just that play, but just kind of set the scene here for those that maybe didn't see it or don't remember what have you. I think it was 2nd and 22 or something like that after an Ohio State holding got them backed up. Then there was a play where C.J. Stroud found, and I forget which receiver over the middle, 11 yards. You had Ohio State, on the edge of field goal position, having, and their kicker was 0 of 1 on the day already. At the very least, it's a long field goal and it's iffy. You had them on the edge of field goal position with 3rd and 2 on the play that I sort of thought maybe you'd be aggressive on to see if you can maybe knock them out of field goal position altogether. You were kind of conservative and, let an underneath pass materialize into 11 yards. And then after the injury timeout, you come out, you had 3 safeties on the field at that time, I believe. And 2 of them blitzed, and they found, the Ohio State receiver in the back of the end zone. They didn't get home. I don't think Ramon Henderson really timed his blitz very well. He was kind of trying to disguise it, was coming from a long way. And there's an Ohio State touchdown. Like I say, I would have done things oppositely there. I would have maybe thought about being a little bit more aggressive on 3rd and 11. I'm sorry, 2nd and 22 than I would have been on 3rd and 11. But you win some, you lose some. Do you think Notre Dame will be able to win out from here? I know I said I was going to stop taking comments here, but a couple good ones have come in, and then I'm going to get back to talking about this game. Maybe open up a phone line here for about a half hour. Talk about if anybody wants to call in. I'll put that number on the screen here in a second. Do you think Notre Dame will be able to win out from here, go 11-1 or 10-2? Yeah, I think that's a possibility, but I'm not going to say it's going to happen. Do I think Notre Dame can win all of the rest of their games? Yes, absolutely. Do I think Notre Dame will win all of the rest of their games? Not necessarily. Again, this is an interesting one. It's complicated. It's complicated right now, I guess, is what I would say. Notre Dame is in a spot where, how good is Notre Dame? I don't know, because I also don't know how good Ohio State is, because there's only been one game played. I mean, and I'd like to think that Ohio State's really, really good. As a Notre Dame fan, that makes me feel good. If Ohio State's really, really good, then that means Notre Dame is a step below, and that's okay for where they are right now. In Marcus Freeman's development as a head coach, and in his first full recruiting class coming in, so on and so forth. Yeah, I think that I'm good with that. What I'll say is this. We're going to learn more about Notre Dame throughout these coming weeks as they play some, lesser opponents and, maybe have a chance to, just build a little bit of confidence. Had Tyler Buckner, been the quarterback all year last season, had Notre Dame just committed to him not taking Jack Cohn as a transfer quarterback. And again, hindsight's 2020, if we had gone with Buckner and he had 12 games under his belt at this point of starting quarterback play, does Notre Dame struggle as poorly as much as they did on offense against Ohio State? I don't think so. I really don't, because that's why Ohio State's real good right now. C.J. Stroud played all last year. And again, I'm not trying to go back and say, Jack Cohn was terrible or Notre Dame coaches are idiots or whatever. I'm not saying that whatsoever. It's just, Notre Dame was going for it last year. That's the point of taking a graduate quarterback, fifth-year quarterback transfer the way that they did. I understand that. They went for it. They went 11-1, missed out on the college football playoff, and that's how you live with that. I think that Notre Dame sort of thought that they had a pretty good window opening up, and I don't know that they were wrong. The problem is now your coach leaves. You are thin at a couple of spots that are really important, and you have a quarterback that frankly isn't as seasoned as you would want him to be in his first start, and you live with it. So Notre Dame will be all right. I think if there was a time to stomach 10-2 and be okay with 10-2, it's right now when you get a new coach, because it's you still feel like things are trending upward. Whereas if Brian Kelly was still here, even if that game had gone the same way as it did last night, I think you still are frustrated, and the narrative stays how it is. Now, since there's a change, a fresh voice, everything that's coming out of Notre Dame, regardless of an outcome against the second best ranked team in college football right now, everything that's coming out of Notre Dame is positive. I think that right now you got to be happy, and even if they go 11-1, 10-2, miss the playoffs, dare I say 9-3, miss the playoffs, that's fine. That's fine, to be honest. For right now, if we're having the same conversation in 4 years, then we're having some issues. But all right, just catching up on a couple more. The Irish played well. No reason to hang your heads. After all, we have a common enemy in Michigan. A couple times last night, they said something about Michigan and the whole stadium booed. I thought that was an interesting come together moment. Gold and blue dude. Ohio State's offense better move. They want to get to the playoffs. Notre Dame played their tails off. I tend to agree, and I think both teams are going to get better, to be honest with you. Notre Dame doesn't have a culture program. I'm not even going to put that or have a culture problem. I'm not even going to put that comment on the screen. But okay. So one last comment. D-Rock, thanks for this. When will Reese open up that dusty playbook? I think, I talked on Nathan Urbach and the Golden Homers' space on Twitter today, just for a hot second. And one thing that Nathan said, and Nathan, I don't know if you're listening or not, but those guys, Nathan Urbach, Mason Plummer, they do a great job at the Golden Homers podcast, and their Twitter spaces are really good and informative, good analysis. I forget which one of those guys said this, but I think Tommy Rees called the plays for the personnel that he has, and the personnel that he has right now is focused on Tyler Buckner trying to get out of the pocket and make some plays on the edge, running the ball with an offensive line that didn't play very well, was without their best player, and was a little bit underwhelming, to be honest with you. And receivers that are just not seasoned. Braden Lenzy, is the most seasoned receiver, and he made a big play for Notre Dame. Came down with a big catch, but we need more out of him. I said that I thought that Lenzy was going to be the X factor of this particular game. I think that was kind of true. Had you gotten a few more plays from a guy like Braden Lenzy, then maybe that game, maybe you go up 17-7. Ohio State isn't able to wear on the Notre Dame's defense, and it's a different game. Okay, so I don't know. But like I say, the bottom line is that he's calling a game with an inexperienced quarterback and inexperienced receivers, and he's only using the cards that he was dealt. And so I don't necessarily know. That I don't necessarily know that there's a not dusting off of the playbook, I suppose. All right, let's talk a little bit more. I know there's a ton of comments in here, and I want to get to a few more of them as we go on. But if I've missed yours and you've got something to say, by all means, let her fly. Like I said, I got a couple more quick comments. And maybe we'll try opening up the phone lines here a little bit. Maybe some of you that are commenting will call in. We can have a quick discussion. And then frankly, here in about 20 minutes, Notre Dame's former coach opens up his career at LSU, which is something I'm sort of excited to see for a variety of reasons, I suppose. last thing, I guess, that I really, really want to talk about, and I was starting to allude to it here just a little bit ago, is the whole discussion of Tommy Rees. And so, I struggle with this, to be honest with you, to be quite honest with you. On one hand, I'm very frustrated with how the play calling at certain times went. Um, I'm frustrated with a lack of execution. I'm frustrated with the recruiting on the offensive side of the football prior to, upcoming cycles. Let's just put it that way. There's some frustrating things. Some of that falls on Tommy Rees. I agree. Again, on one hand, you can say, like I just said, that he called the game based on the hand that he was dealt. And I think he did an okay job for the most part because, you weren't dealt a great hand. You don't have receivers to rotate in and out and go 5 wide, or have Mayer in a slot with 3 wide receivers and a running back. You don't have that personnel to do that all that often. Where there's some things that I thought I could see that I maybe could have seen a little bit more. The jet sweep a little bit more. I thought they ran it 2 or 3 times. Once I remember, Tyree breaking a play, and a play where almost broke it for a lot more, picked up 10, 12, 15 yards, whatever it was. Could they have stretched them, and maybe not just jet sweeps, but could they have stretched them horizontally a little bit more at times in the passing game by hitting some tunnel screens? I mean, I think they hit one tunnel screen to Mayer on the goal line that set up Notre Dame's only touchdown, got him the first down at about the 1 yard line, and Estime went in over the top the play after that. Could they have done a few more things like that? Could they have run a few more short passes, screen plays, whatever, to pick up 5-6 yards and keep them, get them more into 2nd and 3, where maybe then you go run play, get it to 3rd and 1.5. And then you're thinking about going for it on some of those 4th downs. Yeah. Here's the thing. Even as bad as some people were making it in terms of how bad the offense was, Notre Dame was right there a couple of times. They were right down there. I think, they had gotten to about the 35-ish, 36-ish yard line on a 4th down and 3 or 4, and elected to punt, which was ultra conservative. Even if you get a few more yards, and I could be wrong on the down and distance, but they were around the 35, 36 yard line. You get a couple yards and you get to about 50, 49, and then you kick a field goal, and then you go up, because I believe they were up, or maybe it was 14-10 at that point, but you keep it a little bit closer. Then it's 21-13 down the stretch, and you got a chance. I don't know. They were right there. Offensive pass interference on the one drive that Notre Dame kind of started to put together. I need to find that to watch that a second time. I really wasn't lobbying for defensive pass interference on that play. And to set the scene for you guys a little bit, if you don't remember, it was 1st and 10, Notre Dame driving in the 4th quarter, having just gone down 14-10, I believe. They had reached, somewhere in the ballpark of Ohio State's 35-yard line, throw a deep one to Matt Salerno. He's called for offensive pass interference, backs him up to a 1st and 25, and just couldn't recover out of that. Punted it deep, pinned him pretty deep, but Ohio State's offense then, salted it away, went up 21-10. And at that point, the game was pretty well over. I don't know, the plays that changed the game. Here's the bottom line. Here's what I'll say, because I got a lot of things that I could talk about, but I want to try to open up the phone line a little bit. Notre Dame was right there. Had they were up 10-7 for a very, very long time. They had opportunities to move the ball and didn't. They had times where, I thought there was a play in the 3rd quarter where Stroud throws an out route on a 3rd down pass, and I thought that Cam Hart was just, a shade away from intercepting the pass, or at least breaking it up and forcing a field goal attempt. I just thought that there were a couple times, even the first touchdown, I think it was Cam Hart again, kind of undercuts the route a little bit. If he goes with more of a conservative approach and just sort of plays the receiver a little bit more, I'm not sure that Ohio State's receiver that scored there, whose name I don't even want to say, double E, because I can't say it, I'm going to mispronounce it. Somebody put it in the chat so I can see it phonetically. But when Ohio State scores that first touchdown, play that a little bit more conservatively, break up the pass instead of making the huge play. There were just a couple plays throughout the game that if it goes a different way, Ohio State doesn't score, they're forced into a field goal attempt, or Notre Dame, scores or kicks a field goal, or whatever the situation is. And then the game becomes a little bit different after that. Whether it changes the outcome of the game, I don't know, because ultimately Ohio State made the most plays down the stretch, and there's no denying that. They made all the plays down the stretch. And so would they have made more plays, more big plays, if they were forced to do so? Potentially, and maybe the game ends up the same way. But, there were plays out there for Notre Dame to make at certain times. They just didn't make them. And again, that's the difference right now, is that, the top-notch teams make the plays when they don't play particularly perfectly, when they don't have in their arsenal what makes them really good. When that's not working, they make the plays necessary in other areas to go win a football game. And that's what Ohio State did. Notre Dame struggled to make the plays when they needed to. Egbuka, that's his name. Okay. D-Rock, he says, Ben, I don't think you want me on the phone line tonight. Call in, D-Rock. That's fine. So speaking of the phone line, we got about 100 listeners here for about, 10, 15 minutes here as we kind of close the show. I'll go ahead and open up the phone line again. The number is 330-333-2042. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that on your screen. It's across the bottom ticker there. Feel free to call in. I'm going to ramble here for a hot second. Understand, I am an individual guy without a producer. Okay. So I'm not screening calls here. So, if your call gets answered, allow me to finish my thought. You'll hear me. I'll bring you on, ask you, to maybe say your name or whatever the situation is. And, you can be heard. If that's what happens today, if nobody calls in, I'm not exactly hurt by that, because we've had pretty good interaction here throughout the comments. Again, that number is 330-333-2042. If you do call in, let's just make sure that we keep it, we want to keep this a family show. Let's put it that way. And again, that's Notre Dame fans, Ohio State fans alike. And so if you got something to say, whether you're an Ohio State fan, you want to gloat or whatever it is, go ahead and do it. That's fine. Again, as I kind of get to, sorry, distracted by some of the things going on in the comments. Here's something that I guess I gotta address that a couple people have said in the comments now, and that I heard a couple people say this isn't the perfect comment to talk about this, but a lot of people talking about Marcus Freeman being now 0-2 as a head coach. Come on, guys. Are Notre Dame fans allowed to cry? Yes, they are allowed to cry. Nothing says stud coach like literally never winning a game. Again, 2 games. Notre Dame played that bowl game with, about half of their coaching staff, and not how much went on in Notre Dame's program through November, December, I guess I should say, after December when Brian Kelly left. Marcus Freeman's brought in. You can't count the bowl game. You can count this one. But I feel pretty confident that here in about 2 weeks from today, we're going to be talking about how Marcus Freeman has gotten his record to 500, so to speak. So we've got a caller here. Let's see if this works. Hi, you're on the...
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
Oh, my. Accepting the call. Here, we're learning live here. Hi, you're on the voice of college football, MarkRogersTV. Who am I speaking with?
Is it me you're talking to?
Sure is.
This is Joe Long. I'm in that chat, and I'm just I can't stand these freaking Ohio and whatever that Key Fresh is chump. He's probably a Michigan fan, but I don't know. He's too much of a wussy to just say who he is. Anyway,
what's on your mind, Joe?
I have many things to say about it. You might have read some of it, but Tommy Rees is just, they showed him during the game, and he looks like he's a high school student watching the game up in the booth, And he's proved to be terrible. I mean, he hasn't earned the idea of being an offensive coordinator anywhere, let alone Notre Dame, He showed us that in the Fiesta Bowl, second half, no points. This game, second half, no points. I mean, these defensive guys, we played well on defense. We just got tired again. It's the same old story with Tommy Rees. He can't get anything going in the second half. He has no answers. They make adjustments, and he doesn't. And then we have a guy like Zeke Correll in the middle of the offensive line. And that guy, when you watched his practice film all summer, the guy can't do anything. He's not strong. He's small. He has no leg push. He has no arm strength, upper body. And they're using him. I mean, don't we have anybody else? We will never be able to beat teams like Ohio State, like Alabama, Clemson. If you don't have elite at every position anymore, and I get it, high schools have now just football schools. So, they took that from the college, which are just football schools. They're not there to teach academics, so I get it. But Notre Dame needs to be able to have elite, and it looks like it's pretty good. Like right now, I think we're number 2 recruiting for 2023. So that might fall off. But if we stay top 5, I'd be happy with that every year. I think we could get, and if we get rid of Rees, I think that's where we can make any kind of claim to being elite, but we're not there yet because we just don't have it. I mean, Foskey was invisible. Foskey was terrible.
Yeah. So let me touch on a couple things that you said. I totally understand the feeling that Tommy Rees, and I think what you said was he hasn't earned the offensive coordinator position anywhere, let alone Notre Dame. And to a certain degree, I understand that comment. I think he was at Northwestern as a coach. He was in the with the Bears for like a year. Tommy Rees, as you were talking, I looked up how old Tommy Rees is. I'm 30.
I think he was with Washington, but Redskins, but it was only because his father was in the league.
Sure. And so, he's I'm 31. He's a year younger than I am, so that makes him 30. I think that's an interesting, I hate to make excuses. I really do. But I think you have a point that Tommy Rees is not a seasoned offensive coordinator, at least not yet. And some of the things that, I think I said it earlier, some of these things are Notre Dame doesn't have the dudes they don't have the dudes at wide receiver right now. That's for absolute certain. Does some of that fall on Tommy Rees? Yeah, absolutely. It does. As the offensive coordinator, you're in charge of recruiting on the offensive side of the ball. Now, obviously you have other guys that do that, and your head coach, which oversees. My bigger thing is why did the previous regime put us in this position where Brian Kelly didn't say, hey, Tommy, like, we got to get some receivers in here, dude. Like, hey, Dell Alexander, what was Dell Alexander doing at Notre Dame? Those are the guys that I point to a little bit more than Tommy Rees, to be honest with you. Now, here's what I'll also say. I'm not ready to throw in the towel on Tommy Rees just yet, although I agree with some of the things that you said. If we're doing this show on November, I don't know, what is it, the 8th or 9th, after they play Clemson. It might be later than that. Somebody look up the date for me. But if we're doing this show and talking about the same thing then I think we have a serious problem. I think it was a definite conservative.
I was kind of like that. I was kind of thinking that too. Give him this year, but what he proved to me, when you don't play Buckner in the Fiesta Bowl, when you are doing nothing but 3 and outs, I mean, give the kid a chance to show something.
Sure. Yeah, I again.
And then this game, he didn't show me any. I mean, the good thing was he had another good first half of calls. But once his playlist is like, his creativity is gone. He uses it all in the first half.
Sure.
It's insane to watch, like you see some pretty good talent. Like Joe Alt is good. And another thing, Blake Fisher did not impress me yesterday. And I've been all thinking he's all world. I love the guy. But he didn't do anything for running.
Right.
But I mean, when you have a guy like Zeke Correll in the middle of the line, that hurts everything you want to do. When you have a weak spot in the center of the field,
right,
you can't do anything like running. Estime could have been good if he had a good center blocking, because the rest of the guys are good enough to be good,
Right.
And
one thing to your point,
he is a weak link. I don't get why he got the starting job. I don't see it, unless he was there when Highstand was there, or Heastand.
I do believe he's a Heastand guy, at least was recruited there. So I think there was a comfort level
he's
there.
Been there like 5 years.
Sure. So, the other thing is, Heastand, just came back as well. If there's anything that I think will continue to get better at Notre Dame, as long as Harry Heastand is around, it's the offensive line play. And again, it wasn't going to get fixed. It wasn't going to get fixed after, bringing him back. You can't undo the things that Notre Dame, the style of offensive line was different. You can't fix all of that and change it all in one year.
And Mayer to me is proving himself not to be the top 2 tight end. He's not great. He's kind of like, and you probably don't remember him, but Mark Bavaro, he's very similar to him. He's slow and lumbering. He's not fast. And when you had a guy like Tyler Eifert out there, that guy was a fast tight end, and he was a brute,
Right. Yeah.
And they just, Mayer, everyone praises him, and they praise Cam Hart. Cam Hart didn't have a good game by any stretch, and he never has. And yet all these Notre Dame fans were saying how good he's going to be. And it's just because he's big, but he's not fast, and he's not like instinctual.
Right. Yeah, I really, I don't disagree with a whole lot of what you're saying. I mean, I think you've picked out some guys that didn't look great yesterday, to be quite honest with you. What I will say, and Joe, thanks for calling in. We're gonna let you go at this point, but
right.
I think time will tell.
I know. I just hate losing.
I understand. I like I say, I think time will tell, and I agree with a lot of what you said, Joe. But I think that the arrow still points up, as I keep saying. I mean, that's the term that I used, and I think we're brighter days.
They're going to win the games they're supposed to win because Tommy Rees isn't good. So he'll continue to make them look good on the games they should win, and that's not the way you get to the top.
Sure.
Anyway, I'll let you go too.
I appreciate the call, Joe. Thanks. All right. So thanks again, Joe, for calling in. Like I say, I don't disagree with a lot of what Joe said just now. I think that and that's indicative of Notre Dame kind of, I tend to be an optimistic type of a guy. I tend to, see the things that are going well. I also tend to understand where people like Joe are coming from with being really frustrated. I'm really frustrated too. I mean, I'm 31 years old. Notre Dame was last really, really good when I was about 2 years old. Really, really good in 1993. And I'd like to see a Notre Dame team, compete genuinely for a national championship. And you could make the argument, well, they competed genuinely for a national championship in 2012. I get it. That they played in the national championship game. They got beat. They got whooped. That's really started again. The kind of narrative that we're talking about is that Notre Dame never wins these big games. Again, I think the narrative is starting to run out. I really do. It's frustrating because you want to wave a wand and you want to fix certain things quickly. But that's just not how it works, unfortunately. With a change in regime, I think some of these issues that Joe just talked about, that I've talked about throughout this show, will continue to get fixed. So that's my hope, and we hope that there are brighter days ahead. Again, 330-333-2042. We can take another call or two here. Again, I'm interested in getting off here and watching some LSU football, to be honest with you. It might make my I guess, heart a little happy to see Brian Kelly struggle. We'll sort of see. And it'll be interesting to sort of see who, how things look with Brian Kelly and his new team. Got another call coming in here. Give me 1 second. Hi, you're on with the voice of college football. Who am I speaking with?
Hi, this is.
Hi, what's on your mind?
So I had a question on the double safety blitz.
Yes.
Do you think that was a communication mistake, or do you think that was the actual call that Al Golden made? Because it looked like they thought they would have help over the top there. It looked like it just seemed like a really odd play to draw up at that time, and I thought possibly that was a communication mistake.
When you say a communication mistake, do you think? What do you mean? Like, do you think the wrong play was called, or a player messed up, or what do you mean by communication mistake?
I think a player messed up. I think one was supposed to blitz, not two.
There's that potential. I mean, that could have been a thing. I was in that end zone, so that play happened right in front of me. And so immediately, like I think I said earlier, if I remember correctly, and if someone's in the chat listening to this and I'm wrong, you feel free to correct me. But it had been 3rd and 22 or 3rd and 20 or whatever. Ohio State picks up 9 yards or 11 yards, whatever it was on the play after. It's 3rd and 11, and I believe Tariq Bracy had gotten hurt right there. And I actually said to, the people I was sitting with, like, oh my gosh, Notre Dame has 3 safeties on the field right now. So I believe they had definitely Brandon Joseph was out there. Definitely Ramon Henderson was out there. And I think DJ Brown might've been the third one. Although again, if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me on that. You would think that you would have somebody with middle of the field leverage in that particular instance, whether that's, Jaden Mickey playing with inside leverage, or whether it's supposed to be a safety that was supposed to be there the whole time, whether it's just Jaden Mickey not understanding that he's supposed to play in leverage the way he is. I don't know the answer to that question. That's a question for Al Golden. To me, it was, I wouldn't have even blitzed right there, to be honest with you. I would have just sat back and made sure and, tackled after 7 yards, because they were already in good, solid field goal position at that point. That's the question I have, is why blitz there when you didn't blitz when they were right on the edge of field goal range? You get a sack or you deflect a pass or whatever. Now you're at 3rd and 22 or 3rd and 28 or whatever the situation is, and now you can't mess that up, to be honest with you. So I don't know. That's an interesting thought, and I really don't know how to truthfully answer your question. Something was messed up, I think, right, because it was pretty easy for Stroud to get the pass off and for Ohio State to score right there.
Right, because I think it was almost a near perfect game that Al Golden called. Other than that, so that play just really stood out to me, and I don't know. Yeah, it's possible that maybe he just thought he saw something that wasn't there, but they had done such a good job of keeping the receivers in front of them that whole game. And then that one play, and it's at a critical time, critical point in the game.
Probably the biggest play of the game. Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a thought of, we've done this all game, and, they know our tendencies. So let's do something different on 3rd and 11, and let's see if we can make a play. And high risk, high reward, but the risk didn't pay off. It hurts to think, the first play, the first touchdown that Ohio State scored, just Cam Hart misplays the ball in the air, really is the best way I can describe it. You give up 2 touchdowns to a team that's that good on offense, and you feel like it was a defensive error on both of them, or a bad call on both of them, whatever the situation was. And why you even, if Jaden Mickey's supposed to play that a certain way, as somebody was kind of saying, and he misunderstood what was going on. Well, why are you even running that play with a true freshman on the field? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Questions for Al Golden, I guess, that I don't necessarily have the answers to. But
right.
All right, man.
I do think the defense looks really bright, but
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the call. All right. Looks like while we're on the phone there, we had a voicemail from D-Rock. I'm going to try to listen to this voicemail, D-Rock, so just bear with me here for a second. We'll see what D-Rock had to say. Can we hear it? Bear with me here. I'm learning on the job.
Hey, Ben, this is D-Rock. Is this the number for your show tonight?
Sure is, D-Rock. You called the right one. I don't know if that was able to be heard or not. I don't know if I'm pushing the right buttons here, but yeah, this is the number for the show, D-Rock. I just had another call on the line and was unable to get to you. So, couple comments here. And again, I'll take maybe one more phone call if there's another phone call out there. So D-Rock, if you want to call back, I absolutely can take that phone call right now. I've got somebody calling in, so give me 1 second here.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
You're on with the voice of college football. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, D-Rock Harris.
Hi, D-Rock. How are you? Glad we got you on.
Hey, pretty good. Hey, I know that you want to go ahead and watch BK's debut in the Bayou tonight, so I'm gonna go ahead and kind of make this brief. There's been some questions about getting a quarterback coach, and I don't know if Tommy Rees is the right man of being the OC and the quarterback coach at the same time. It seems as though that our quarterbacks are not being developed. We're not putting them in the right situation. We're not getting the right calls in for him to diversify the plays. It seems very predictable on what they're going to go ahead and do. And I just want to know your thoughts about this. Do you think that Notre Dame should get a quarterback coach?
That's a tough question. I mean, I think that, there's a lot of ways I could go when I answer that one. Here's how I'll choose to go with it. Tommy Rees, to a certain degree, when he was hired, I would say that he was a little bit in over his head as the offensive coordinator. Let's put it that way. I don't think that he was, when he was first hired and brought onto the Notre Dame staff as the quarterback coach, I think that you could argue that Ian Book was as good as he was because Tommy Rees was his quarterback coach. And Ian Book had certain physical limitations in terms of not having the lightning arm that you would want from a quarterback at Notre Dame in that offense that you're going to spread it all around. So I think Ian Book being as good as he is a testament to Tommy Rees. So I wouldn't necessarily say that Tommy Rees has done a bad job as the quarterback coach. Again, Tommy Rees is 30 years old, and thus I think he's just not a seasoned offensive coordinator yet. That's not anybody's fault. It's not necessarily even a fault of Tommy Rees. His first, offensive coordinator job wasn't at a place like, Miami of Ohio or Akron or a MAC school. It was at Notre Dame. And so he doesn't have that seasoning yet. Do I think Tommy Rees can be a really good coordinator? Yes, I absolutely do. I think you're seeing some, maybe even what I would call a little bit of growing pains as Tommy Rees as the offensive coordinator. Should they hire another Notre Dame or a quarterback coach at Notre Dame? Couldn't hurt. I mean, but I don't necessarily know how to answer that question any other way, to be honest with you. So I don't know. I think, again, the jury for me is still out on Ian Book because it's like it's the kind of the same conversation that you have about, they've wiped the slate clean with, the bringing in of Freeman as the head coach. And we'll sort of see. I think what I've learned with Freeman thus far is that he brings in good guys. And I know that Tommy Rees is a holdover, but I think Freeman feels pretty good about him. And if he doesn't, I think Marcus Freeman's going to be the guy that would be willing and able to make a change in that area and address that if it continues to be a concern.
Well, that's a good point that you made, because in Marcus Freeman's press conference after the game, he looked frustrated, like the fans were,
right,
about the game, how things weren't clicking. And I have confidence in Marcus Freeman, and but it just seems as though the last caller or the second caller ago, I think it was Joe. The frustration is that it just seems like a rerun of what we've seen over the last couple of years with the play calling. You know, when Notre Dame gets down into Ohio State's territory and all of a sudden turns around and runs 3 straight running plays up the middle.
Yeah.
You know, that's frustrating to see. Didn't see even Buckner doing a lot of rolling out, you know. Instead, he stayed in the pocket, got hammered a couple of times.
Right.
And, you know, used his legs to his advantage, roll out. Screen passes were very, very limited.
Yep.
And Tyree, where was he? He's one of the fastest, if not the fastest guy on our team.
Yep.
And he was invisible. And some of our key players, Tobias Merriweather, you know, I'm hearing different reports, you know, out of camp that he's a baller. He's a tall guy. He can fight for the ball, and he wasn't even out on the field. So, you know, a lot of unanswered questions. And with Marshall, we're going into Marshall now, you know, and it's we're 18-point favorite. And, you know, my confidence in the offense, I'm just hoping they can go ahead and start turning things around here, because they're going to end up playing BYU and some of these other teams, and they're very physical.
Right.
And so, you know, those are just my thoughts on that. And I appreciate your feedback on this. I'm trying to be patient as I can, but I've grown up during the era Parseesian era.
Right.
And I've seen national championships and how they're won, and we are so far away from that mindset right now. But we'll see how things turn out, and I do appreciate the show tonight and your feedback. So have a good night.
Thanks for calling in, D-Rock. Like I said, glad we got you on.
Yeah, thanks, Ben.
See ya. All right. I will take one more call. There's been a person that's called in a few times that, you know, I don't have a way to put you on hold. So if you've been calling in, you want to have your voice heard, by all means, give me one more chance and you can call in. I will answer your call at this point. But, you know, I do think that to a certain degree, patience is sort of the name of the game for Notre Dame at this time. Yeah, It's complicated. I understand. You know, you want it to be good. You want it to be good right now. You want it to be fixed immediately after, you know, the guy that you felt like was holding us back is gone. I get it. I absolutely understand. And a lot of great points by our callers tonight. Like I say, I'll hold here for another couple seconds if whoever's been trying to call in, you know, wants to give me another shot. Here we go. We got another call rolling in real quick. So you're on the Voice of College Football. Who am I speaking with?
Luis.
Nice to meet you. What's on your mind?
I would like to talk about how Tommy Rees needs to humble himself and ask for Dave McCullough and our tight ends coach and ask for opinions, because I don't understand how you cannot use Tobias Mayweather and every other tight end that we have except for Michael Mayer.
I think Notre Dame played multiple tight ends most of the game last night.
No, they did. But we didn't hardly throw any screens to the running backs or to the receivers. We didn't even use Tobias Mayweather for his speed and his height. I just don't get that. How come on a walk-on and I use one of our talented recruits when we have the one that we lost on the other side trying to get him back?
Yeah, I mean, I know you bring up a really good point. And here's what I'll say about Tobias Merriweather specifically, and then I got to go shortly after this. But you know, Jaden Thomas played. He's a true freshman. I understand that. Why Tobias Merriweather played, I can't necessarily tell you now. But what I will say is, if we don't see Tobias Merriweather get a lot of snaps, meaningful ones, like before the game is potentially out of reach against a team like Marshall or hopefully against a team like Cal, then there's a problem. There is an element of, you know, you want to play the guys that you know have been with you, that you've, you know, that have played in these moments before, in the biggest moments. Now, again, I understand that's contradictory to playing Jaden Thomas. Jaden Thomas is a true freshman as well. I still go back to why are we as Notre Dame fans sitting here clamoring for a true freshman that we don't even 100%? I mean, we know what he did in high school, and his high school accolades are absolutely great. And I'm not trying to say Tobias Merriweather isn't a good player or can't help us. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. But why are we in this stage of the program that I really, Brian Kelly's program for the most part, to be honest with you, why are we clamoring for a true freshman to try to come save us in the passing game? And I know that's not exactly what you're doing. I understand. But, at this point, we should have juniors and seniors that are making plays, and we should be saying, like, oh, sweet, like, I can't wait to see Tobias Merriweather play against Marshall and Cal and all of those players. Not, man, I need to see Tobias Merriweather in the biggest game that we'll play all year as a true freshman. That's the part that makes me the maddest. So I think you have a valid point.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Ben.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for I had that idea. I just really want to get Keon Keeley back. My heart is broken when we lost that kid.
Yeah.
But I believe Marcus Freeman, if you hire Marcus Freeman for the job, you should allow him to get his coaches and his staff together. Now, if Tommy Rees is on board, I'm all for it. If not, we have coaches in our staff that I believe that Tom could use their influences and their experience to have a better game plan than we did. I just thought we looked too scared at moments.
Sure. And I think genuinely, I think it will get better. And if it continues to be an issue, I think Marcus has the wherewithal and the awareness to pull the trigger and make a change. And so if that's what has to happen, then that's what has to happen. But I'm not ready necessarily to say that, I'm throwing in the towel just yet.
Oh, no, without a doubt. No, none at all. Just, this has been 2 games where we've seen a little bit of the same old. But again, I wanted to tell you, appreciate for taking my call. I understand you're a busy man. I understand you have a lot on recruiting, and your hands are going to be a handful for the next 12 to 14 weeks. So I just appreciate you being nice enough just to take my call and answer my questions. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Thanks for calling in.
All right, bye. And you'll be hearing from me a lot. Remember, this is Luis from Fresno, California.
All right. Thanks, Luis. Appreciate it.
All right, my friend. Bye-bye.
All right. I think that we're going to call it a day for tonight. Again, we went pretty long here, took some calls. Again, that was the first time I've ever actually executed that. So a little clunky there, taking calls. I appreciate you guys sticking with me. We've had some really good interaction, both in the comments and on the phone line. That was fun. That's what we want to do here. So tell your friends, bring them to this show. We're going to always do a Sunday afternoon show, Sunday evening show, I guess you could say. Most of the time, the layout for this show will be, like I say, most games you'll see me on here doing some sort of a post game. We'll certainly bring in callers in the post game as well. May do a few more things, a weekly show. I don't know that I'll always have callers on, but that was, like I say, that was fun. And I appreciate those 4 of you that called in right there. And so again, you'll hear from me before the Marshall game. Didn't talk Marshall hardly at all. We'll have another show at some point midweek, and definitely post games, definitely Sunday evenings. So kind of pencil me in on your calendar. We'll try to kind of keep it around that 6:30 time frame, 6:30, 7 o'clock. So enjoy the rest of the college football games tonight. We got one tonight, one tomorrow. And then obviously we're preparing as Notre Dame fans for the home opener against Marshall. Until next time, go Irish. Thanks for tuning in.